You're way behind.
So next time, which will be Tuesday for you guys, you will take the chapter 5 test. But remember, it's a mini test. It's not as long or over as much material as your normal test, because we only covered 3 sections. So the problems you're going to do are on page 899 and 900 from section 5.1. You are going to do 2 through 20 even. And section 5.2. 2 through 14 even. And then I will pause there momentarily. Those are the graphing problems. And that's one of the things you'll be required to do is graph the parabolas and see on your calculator where they cross. So on the test, you'll just type them in your calculator, graph them, and then draw that same picture on your paper and put the answers. Right? No, not right at all. Do not just do it in your calculator. So here's what you must find on your own each time. You must find the y-intercept. That's the first thing that you have to find every time that you're graphing these parabolas. Next thing you must find is the axis of symmetry. And remember, the equation is x equals opposite of b over 2a. You have to show that on your test in order to get the points. It is not a multiple choice test. So if you just tell me the answers out of your calculator, it will not be worth even 1 point. Have to do these things. And then using the axis to find the vertex. So remember that. You can use your calculator to determine where they cross, especially if they don't cross at an actual integer. If they cross at like 1.7534, you can't get that any other way but in your calculator. So you have to know how to do that in your calculator also, but you have to know how to find these 3 things without your calculator. So make sure you can do that. So that's all graphing the first 2 sections. And then section 3 is factoring. And on that section, you'll do 1 through 16 all. And there's not a whole lot of any of that you can do on your calculator. You just have to use your rules. Common terms, difference of squares, trinomials, sum and difference of cubes, and then check them all again. Those are your steps you have to know to go through. So has everybody got those problems written down? I'm going to do a few of each one of those and then give the rest of them to you. Your own. So for the graphing problems, flipping back to 5.1 on page 899, I will do number 2, f of x equals negative x squared. So if you haven't gotten your calculator by now, you should, because you will need those in order to graph. So what I say is the first thing you have to find. The y-intercept. How do we do that? For all the x's. So to find the y-intercept, you're going to write, you don't even have to write that. I mean, it's pretty obvious to most of us if you put zeros in for x's that your y-intercept is in fact 0 for that problem. So you could go to your graph then, if you had it drawn, and put a 0 there for the y-intercept. What do you have to find next? Axis of symmetry. So x equals opposite of b over 2a. What's b in this problem? There isn't one. So it is 0 over 2 times -1. So your axis of symmetry, that vertical line, is at 0. So we draw the vertical dotted line there. On the x-axis. And then using that, you find the vertex. To find the vertex, you plug in that axis point. What are you going to get for your vertex then? Also 0. So your vertex is 0, 0, and your y-intercept is 0, 0. So finding those three things doesn't really get you very far as graphing this parabola. So what you would have to do, and especially last year, what you would have had to have done, is plugged in some values to find out some more points on there and get your parabola graph. You can still do that. A lot of you could plug in 1 and 2 faster than you could graph it on your calculator. But since we have them, we might as well use them. And let's go ahead and go through the steps of graphing these. Turn them on, and what do we hit? Y equals. Some other classes have been doing inequalities. So if you have an inequality sign there, I would change that to an equals. Clear that out of there. And type x squared. And hit graph. So we can see then by looking at that it opens this way, goes right through there. How do we know it opens down without graphing? A is negative, this number right here. In front of the x squared is negative. So you should know it opens down just from that. So looking at this, now we need points. How do we get them? Your window's screwed up. Can I fix your window? These should be minimums should be -10, maximum should be +10, and your SCL should be 1. So what did we say? I'm sure somebody said it. Second graph, second, and then graph. Right above the graph key is your table key, and that's where you need to go. So you can see 0, 0 is on there. What else is on there? 1, -1, and 2, -4. I heard both of those. So 1, -1, and 2, -4. So do we need our calculators to find more points? No, you can just sketch those on the other side of the line of symmetry. And that's certainly enough points to get a good sketch of the parabola. Now, clearly that's not perfect, but it's good enough. You will have to show that you actually put points on the graph. You'll probably have little pieces of graph paper on your test like usual, so there's no reason why you can't get it very accurately graphed on there. A lot of times when I grade tests, I think it's mostly because whoever is doing it doesn't know what they're doing, so they just throw something on. That's not going to be worth any points in this test. You have to use your calculator. There's no reason why you can't use your calculator to get those points and make a good graph. So that's what's going to be expected on all the graphing problems on the test. That you find this stuff and you get it graphed over there. Now, the very last thing is where does it cross? In this problem, you can see where does it cross. At what? So x equals 0, and what do we need to say there? It is a double root. X equals 0 is a double root. What? Who said what? Yeah. Looks like a donut, but yeah, you can circle that to denote that it is a double root. So we'll do one more of those problems. That's got A, B, and C. We'll do number 8. F of x equals x squared minus 2x minus 8. Same 3 steps. What do we find first? You can write A, B, and C, but yeah, the first thing we have to find is the y-intercept. And And so if we make all the x's 0, what are we left with there? -8. So the y-intercept is -8. So on the y-axis, not the x, we will go down to -8 and put that point. And you can wait until you find everything before you sketch them, before you put y-intercept on there. But since mine's already up there, I just go ahead and do it. And then we find the axis. So what is b in this problem? -2, so the opposite of that would be +2 over 2 times a, and a is +1. So what is your axis align? At x equals 1. 2 over 2 is 1. So where x equals 1, we can sketch our axis line. So if 0, -8 is on there, we could also put 2, -8 using symmetry. Put those 2 points on there. And what do we still need to find? The vertex. So we put 1 in there to find the vertex. So 1 squared minus 2 times 1 minus 8. And of course, there are still some of you who are refusing to use parentheses. Wouldn't matter on this problem, but it will on a lot. So you have to put those numbers in parentheses. So that would give us 1 minus 2 minus 8, which is blank. 8 and 9. If it were -1 minus 2 minus 8, it'd be 11. So we could sketch this graph, but what are we looking for? What? Yeah, what's the overall goal? What are we trying to find? And if we just sketch that in, are we going to be able to tell that? No. So I would start plugging in values going to the right, or even more advised is grab a calculator. Go back to y equals x squared minus 2x minus 8. Graph. And hopefully you see a parabola that lines up pretty closely with what you've already got sketched up there. Can you see by looking where it looks like it crosses? Where's one point it looks like it's crossing? I heard 4, which is correct. -2, which is also correct. Those are the two. But let's hit second graph to go to our table and grab a couple more points out of there. And you can check on your graph wherever you get zeros. For instance, if you go to 4 in your x column, you see 0. So 4, 0 is one of the intersection points. And if you have that point that's 3 to the right of your axis, then you would also have the point 3 to the left of your axis, and that's -2. So those are the two places that it crosses. And if you wanted to, you could get that point at -1, -1, -5, just to be, whoops. Just to have more points, so your graph would be even better. X equals -2 and 4 are the two places it crosses. Even though we know, I'm going to show you again on the calculator how to find those zeros, because again, sometimes they won't be right on an answer, right on an integer number. But remember what we have to push. Where do we go in order to calculate the 0? Hit second, trace. So we hit second, and your trace key up there, right above it is calc. You want to calculate. What do we want to calculate once we go there? 0. So you can either hit 2 or go down to 2 and push enter. And then you have a little blinker on there somewhere. Mine was on the x-axis down there. And it says left bound. So if we know this is one of the zeros, which would be on the left side of that, the top or the bottom? The top. So you need to put that little blinking cursor right up on here, anywhere you want to. And push enter. That marks the left side of where your zero's at. So then the right side would be down here. So you go down there and push enter one more time. And it marks it. And then you push enter to guess. And it does in fact show you -2. And then you do the same process for the other side. So we hit second, calculate. We want to calculate the 0. Now, I don't remember, somebody at some point said, well, I thought the left was always on top. No, that's not the case. You got to figure it out. If you know this is one of your zeros, which is the left side of the 0 here, the bottom or the top? The bottom. So it doesn't really matter bottom or top as far as which one is left. It's whichever side is left of that point you're looking for. So this will be your left side, and that will be your right side for that. And if you type that in, it will tell you x equals 4. So go ahead and work on those graphing problems. And in 15 or 20 minutes, I'll do some of the factoring problems for review.